The San Onofre nuclear power station, 50 miles north of San Diego, was built in the 1980s based on technology developed in the 1960s. At the sprawling General Atomics campus in San Diego, Dr. John Parmentola says there are better ways to harness nuclear power.
The paradigm that we're advocating is a completely different paradigm on how you would build reactors.
One of the problems with San Onofre is the amount of spent nuclear fuel that is stored on site. Here at General Atomics, they're looking for ways to use nuclear power to generate energy more safely.
And the startling thing that we uncovered was the amount of energy that still exists in the waste at nuclear reactor sites around the country. Well, if you add up all of that energy that's in all that stuff, it's 40 times the oil reserves of Saudi Arabia. It's equivalent to 9 trillion barrels of oil in energy. That's an enormous amount of energy. And of course, it begs the question, can't we do something with it?
General Atomics' answer to this question is EM squared. It's a new kind of reactor that would run on the spent fuel. Christian Deck is on the project team. He's developing a new kind of material to insulate the fuel rods.
And so inside here is a smaller work area where we actually fabricate the composites.
The ceramic cladding or insulation is important because this reactor is not refueled every 18 months like current nuclear power plants. The same fuel rods would stay in the reactor burning for 30 years without ever being removed.
So we need this material to safely contain the fuel throughout the entire life of the reactor under normal and under potential accident conditions.
Dr. Parmentola believes this new insulation could have prevented the hydrogen explosion that happened at Fukushima. And he says after several cycles of burning nuclear fuel, the EM squared reactor would ultimately leave very little waste.
Spent fuel, the radioactivity can last hundreds of thousands of years. The waste that I'm talking about will last hundreds of years.
One big objection to reactors that burn spent nuclear fuel has been the creation of materials that could be turned into bombs. Parmentola says the EM squared would not produce byproducts that would increase the risk of nuclear proliferation.
These neutron-absorbing products have no proliferation value whatsoever. Nobody would want to use them to make a bomb because you can't make a bomb out of them.
Generating energy using nuclear fusion rather than nuclear fission would have fewer dangers. General Atomics does have one of the few prototypes of a fusion tokamak in the world. But in spite of massive investments, that technology is still in its infancy. Bob Schleicher co-invented EM squared.
To make fusion a reality, there still has to be inventions that have not been invented. I think with EM square, we have all the inventions now that we need, and we just have to do the engineering and do the proof research that confirms our projection, our calculations.
Murray Jennings is a nuclear engineer who used to work at San Onofre. After Fukushima, he regularly took a Geiger counter to the beach in Oceanside.
And I was just checking background radiation levels, and I didn't find anything.
Jennings took a look at General Atomics' plans for EM squared. He says burning spent fuel would help solve a big safety issue, but he's not convinced it's as safe as General Atomics claims.
This reactor still is subject to meltdowns.
He's worried about the digital controls that GA promises to use on the new design. That's less reliable than analog controls and could be vulnerable to cyber attack.
Anything that solves an old risk with new technology is going to bring in an inherently new risk that we haven't really thought through yet.
When dealing with nuclear power, Jennings says, the technology must be tried and true. The problem with the newly designed steam generators at San Onofre are proving that point. The challenge for General Atomics is to keep generating the billions of dollars it will need to build prototypes to prove that EM squared technology is tried and true, cost-effective, and safe.